It was nearly 7:45 a.m. when director Alexei Volkov entered the quiet marble lobby of the Novatek headquarters. The scent of fresh detergent lingered in the air, proof that the cleaning staff had already been hard at work. He adjusted his tailored coat and moved toward the elevator, but something made him pause. Across the lobby, a small figure was kneeling near a corner, scrubbing a stubborn stain with methodical, almost trembling strokes. It was the janitor, Nina, mid-40s, quiet, always alone. Her grey uniform hung loosely from her thin frame, and her dark hair was tied back in a practical knot. Most of the employees barely noticed her, but something about the stiffness in her movements made Alexei hesitate. He turned slowly and watched for a moment longer. She didn't look up. Instead, her sleeve slipped slightly as she stretched forward, and that's when he saw it. A faint purplish-blue mark along her forearm. Then another, near her wrist. He stepped forward, instinct overriding hesitation. "Nina," he said gently. She froze, the sponge dropping from her hand and landing with a wet slap on the tiles. Her head jerked up, wide eyes blinking in alarm. "Mr. Volkov, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you." "It's all right," he said, crouching slightly to her level, his voice lower, softer now. "Are you all right?" She swallowed hard and nodded too quickly. Yes, just a little tired. The morning shift starts early." Alexei's eyes lingered on the bruises. They weren't old. Some looked recent, others, yellowed with age. "Your arm. Did something happen?" She immediately pulled her sleeve down, as if ashamed. "It's nothing. I'm just clumsy. Fell while cleaning the stairs last week." It was the same line she had given HR 2 months ago. And again the month before that. But now, seeing her up close, something in her eyes betrayed the truth. Not fear of being reprimanded, but fear of something else entirely. Someone. Alexei stood slowly, not wanting to intimidate her, but something stirred deeply in him. A memory, his mother, trying to cover bruises in the mirror. Her quiet pleas at night. The sound of broken glass. He had been just a boy then, helpless to protect her. But he wasn't helpless now. "Nina," he said softly, "please stand up." She hesitated, confused. "Sir, please," he repeated, holding out a hand. Reluctantly, she placed her fingers in his palm and stood. She wouldn't meet his gaze. He led her to the receptionist's desk and motioned for the early shift security guard. "Ivan," he said, "bring a chair." Nina's voice trembled. "I don't want any trouble, Mr. Volkov. I'll be fine." He turned to her and said with calm authority, "You won't be in trouble. I just need to understand what's going on." The chair arrived, and Nina sat down stiffly. Alexei knelt again, this time taking out his phone. "Do you have children?" he asked gently. She nodded. "A daughter. She's 11. And is she safe?" he asked. Tears instantly filled her eyes. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. He didn't press her. Instead, he made a few calls, quietly, efficiently. To HR. To the company therapist. To someone at a local women's protection NGO. And then he waited. Nina finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "He said if I told anyone, he'd take her away. That no one would believe me. That I'd lose my job." Alexei didn't blink. He was wrong. She looked up finally, meeting his eyes for the first time. There was pain there, but also disbelief. "Why do you care? I'm just a cleaner." "No one is just anything," Alexei said firmly. "You work here. You keep this place shining when the rest of us are asleep. That matters. You matter." Nina's lips quivered, then pressed together as she tried to hold back a sob. He stood and turned to the guard. "She's not to be left alone. She stays in the employee lounge. Bring her some tea." The guard nodded, stunned by the director's sudden attention to a woman most employees barely acknowledged. As Alexei stepped into the elevator, he looked back once, at Nina, hunched in the chair, clutching a paper napkin in her trembling hands. But something had changed. In that moment, the silence surrounding her suffering began to break. And what came next would shake the entire building. The news traveled through the building like lightning. By noon, whispers floated between departments, hushed conversations behind closed doors, stolen glances at the executive floor. The director personally intervened. "She had bruises. She's just a janitor, right?" "No, not anymore." But behind the buzz, serious steps were already in motion. That afternoon, Alexei Volkov sat in the HR conference room with 2 senior managers, the company's in-house counselor, and a representative from a domestic abuse support organization. Nina sat at the far end of the table, nervous, her fingers interlocked so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had never been in a room like this before. The walls were lined with glass, the table polished to a sheen. Everyone looked at her, not with annoyance, not with pity, but with genuine concern. It was foreign, unnerving, kind. Alexei sat directly across from her, his demeanor calm but firm. "Nina," he began, "I want to be absolutely clear. You're not alone. And this company will not ignore your pain." She looked down. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to, said the counselor softly. But if you want to share, we're here to listen. Nina hesitated, then breathed deeply. It's my husband, she whispered. He's been like this for years. I stayed for my daughter. I thought it would get better. I thought if I worked hard enough, kept quiet, maybe things would change. Her voice cracked. He didn't want me working, but I took this job anyway. Early hours, quiet work, safe, I thought. But he still found reasons to get angry. The counselor nodded. That's how abusers work. They isolate, control, threaten. Nina wiped her eyes with a tissue. He told me no one would help. That people like me don't matter. Alexei leaned forward, his voice low but resolute. He was wrong. There was a pause. Then he turned to the HR director. Effective immediately, Nina is to be given a paid leave of absence. We'll cover her full salary. And we're assigning her a company lawyer to begin proceedings for a restraining order. The HR director nodded, stunned. Of course, sir. We'll also move her to company-provided housing in our safe relocation program, Alexei continued. We'll make sure her daughter is transferred to a nearby school, discreetly. Nina stared at him, lips parted, unable to speak. Why are you doing all this? Alexei looked at her with the same intensity he had the morning he saw her bruises. Because we're not a company of machines. We're people, and people protect their own. Tears flowed freely now, but not from fear, from relief. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, a company-wide email was sent from the director's desk. It didn't mention Nina by name. But it spoke boldly of a zero-tolerance policy toward abuse. Of standing up when others fall silent. Of reminding every employee, from the top executives to the cleaning crew, that their life matters. The next morning, Nina didn't come to work. She didn't have to. She was in a safe apartment, her daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room. But on the lobby floor, where she used to scrub silently, a small bouquet of flowers rested near the wall. A simple card stuck between the stems. Read, "You were seen. You were heard. You are not invisible anymore." And across the city, one very powerful man sat behind his desk, signing off on the most meaningful directive of his career. He hadn't just saved a life. He had changed the story.